my name is Nishat Nur and welcome to Millennium Headlines. This week's headlines are: President Obama commemorates the 70th anniversary of D-Day. Bangladesh Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina condoles Gopinath Mundi's death. Campus shooting suspect in Seattle wanted to kill as many as possible. Man attacks outside Georgia courthouse, wounded a deputy. U.S. economy reaches milestone. Afghan candidate escapes assassination attempt. Deadly downpours deluge China. Landslide destroys school site. President Obama traveled to Normandy, France to commemorate the 70th anniversary of D-Day.
President Hollande, the people of France, friends, family, our veterans. If prayer were made of sound, the skies over England that night would have deafened the world. Captains paced their decks, pilots tapped their gauges, commanders pored over maps, fully aware that for all the months of meticulous planning, everything could go wrong. The winds, the tides, the element of surprise, and above all, the audacious bet that what waited on the other side of the channel would compel men not to shrink away, but to charge ahead. Fresh-faced GIs rubbed trinkets, kissed pictures of sweethearts, checked and rechecked their equipment. God, asked one, give me guts. And in the pre-dawn hours, planes rumbled down runways, gliders and paratroopers slipped through the sky. Giant screws began to turn on an armada that looked more like ships than sea. And more than 150,000 souls set off toward this tiny sliver of sand upon which hung more than the fate of a war, but rather the course of human history. President Hollande, distinguished guests, I am honored to return here today to pay tribute to the men and women of a generation who defied every danger. Among them are veterans of D-Day. And gentlemen, we are truly humbled by your presence here today. Just last week, I received a letter from a French citizen. Dear Mr. President and the American people, he wrote, we are honored to welcome you, to thank you again for all the pain and efforts of the American people and others in our common struggle for freedom. Today we say the same to the people of France. Thank you, especially for the generosity that you've shown the Americans who've come here over the generations, to these beaches and to this sacred place of rest for 9,387 Americans. At the end of the war, when our ships set off for America filled with our fallen, tens of thousands of liberated Europeans turned out to say farewell, and they pledged to take care of the more than 60,000 Americans who would remain in cemeteries on this continent. In the words of one man, we will take care of the fallen as if their tombs were our children's. And the people of France, you have kept your word, like the true friends you are. We are forever grateful.
Bangladesh Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina Tuesday wrote to her Indian counterpart Narendra Modi, condoling the sudden demise of Union Minister Gopinath Mundi. Bangladesh has lost a good friend, she said. Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina said, "You have lost a distinguished political leader and we have lost a good friend of Bangladesh." The man, Aaron Barra, blasting away with a shotgun, paused to reload, and John Miz saw his chance. The 22-year-old building monitor pepper-sprayed and tackled the gunman Thursday in Seattle Pacific University's Otto Miller Hall, likely preventing further carnage, according to police and the university officials. Miz and other students subdued him until officers arrived and handcuffed him moments later. Police said the shooter, who killed a 19-year-old man and wounded 2 other young people, had 50 additional shotgun shells and a hunting knife. He admitted after his arrest that he wanted to kill as many people as possible before taking his own life, Seattle police wrote in a statement filed in court Friday. A man wielding an assault rifle, explosive, and supplies take hostages opened fire outside a Georgia courthouse on Friday, wounding a deputy before he was killed in a shootout with officers, authorities said.
3 minutes. This video was taken by a construction worker across the street. The attacker had driven that silver SUV close to the front door, driving toward and nearly running over a deputy. He began firing and detonated smoke bombs. 1 deputy was shot during the battle. The suspect, identified as Dennis Marks, was killed. Sheriff Dwayne Piper says it took 8 officers to bring him down.
He had body armor on. He was throwing tear gas grenades. He was throwing smoke grenades and pepper spray grenades. He also had a gas mask on. He came prepared to do this.
And he may have been prepared to take hostages.
He also had flex cuffs ready to apply to people. He had water supply and he had all kinds of ammunition on it.
The economic expansion in the U.S. reached a milestone in May with employment exceeding the pre-recession peak for the first time almost 5 years after the recovery began. The 217,000 advance in hiring followed a 282,000 gain in April. Figures from the Labor Department showed yesterday in Washington. It marked the 4th consecutive month employment increased by more than 200,000, the first time that's happened since early 2000. The jobless rate unexpectedly held at an almost 6-year low of 6.3%. U.S. Representative Roy Gomer visits Lagos to listen to 21 mothers of young girls kidnapped by the Islamist group Boko Haram. This evil has to stop, he said, adding that he fears a useless religious war in the country.
The Nigerian government needs to realize that unless they stop Boko Haram, that there will be great damage done to all peace-loving Muslims in Nigeria. And this could accelerate into a religious war that doesn't need to happen. I hope that the United States will be the kind of friend that Nigeria will have forever, that will help as Nigeria wants us to help. But this kind of evil has to stop.
The front-runner for the Afghan presidency narrowly escaped assassination Friday when two bombs struck his convoy as it traveled between campaign events in the capital.
چند دو تا زری مکمل از بین رفته یکی
A partially constructed school building collapsed in southern China after downpours triggered a landslide in the region on Wednesday. Thank you for watching Millennium Headlines. See you next week.